For this video, I'm going to be putting on a suit because it seems like that is all you need to become a decent NBA journalist, a decent NBA analyzer, and a decent NBA reporter. Maybe speech problems kind of don't help you a little bit, and maybe having a poster of Michael Carter Williams on your wall isn't the best. But listen, I got this for free at a Magic game. Let me live. I wanted to go over and look at some of the Bleacher Report articles. Well, one specific one. One that came out literally today. What's today? Is today the 15th? Yeah, one that literally came out today, the 15th, a couple hours ago. It is a redraft of the 2018 NBA class, and I really want to get into it because, yes, while some of it makes sense, there's a lot of parts where it's a lot of recency bias and maybe a lot of not really thinking and looking deep into a situation of where that player is. I'm talking about Mo Bamba. Yes, I might be a little bit biased towards my Magic players. I mean, clearly I'm a Magic fan. Yeah, if you look over there, I got a couple jerseys. I got a little bit of everything on this wall. So clearly I'm a little bit of a Magic fan. And yes, I'm kind of pissed that they had Mo Bamba in a specific spot. But listen, we're going to go over this. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to discuss it, what I think, my thoughts and opinions. Let's get right into it. All right, so right off the bat, it's 2018 NBA redraft. Who follows Luka Doncic? And this is written by Andy Bailey. I have no idea who that is. So Andy, I'm sorry. Maybe you're pretty popular. I'm pretty sure other people know you. Maybe I should check out your Twitter page. I just started. So look, obviously, this is starting off weird because they have Mo Bamba between 30 and 26. The reason why I say this is weird is because Mo Bamba, yes, he's on the Magic, and yes, I'm a little bit biased, and yes, I'm a little bit offended. You have to take into account that the situation Mo Bamba is in is completely different than any rookie that is going through the motion right now. For example, the Celtics rookie, Robert Williams, the reason why we're able to see him flourish so well is because the Celtics didn't really have a center. I mean, he was fighting for minutes against Tristan Thompson. Mo Bamba was literally behind Nikola Vucevic, an all-star center, not some type of scrub like Tristan Thompson. Well, Tristan Thompson was pretty good back then. But Mo Bamba has had one of the rougher situations out of this entire draft class because it is so hard for Mo to get minutes behind Nikola Vucevic. Now we're going to see how it goes with Mo and Wendell Carter Jr. I'm really interested to see, but I really don't think Mo Bamba deserves to fall between picks 30 and 25 because none of it is really his fault. Mo Bamba was playing behind Steve Clifford, a coach that literally hates rookies. I mean, look at what happened with Malik Monk. The same thing happened to Mo Bamba, and he's one of the main reasons why Mo Bamba hasn't really been able to develop. So let's go down the list. Mo Bamba does have a bright future. These picks, I don't really care too much about. Hamidou Diallo, that's a pretty good one. He did deserve to be a first-round pick. Gary Trent Jr., I think Gary Trent Jr., maybe you could argue that he could go a little bit further up this draft. It all really just depends on situation and fit. So now, the Mo Bamba one is 26. I already just discussed that. So 25 through 21, I'm not going to be too much into these picks as these are the lesser picks, but they are some of them that we will have to discuss. For example, all these are fine. Marvin Bagley falling from number 2 to number 22 is insane. Look, I know Marvin Bagley hasn't had the best career so far. Marvin Bagley has been in a little bit of a sticky situation. He's not really competing with too many minutes with anybody, but Marvin Bagley has had a really, really rough start to his NBA career. Scoring inefficiency, lack of defense have doomed Marvin Bagley. Advanced numbers through the first 3 seasons of his career. So if we're basing his failures off of advanced statistics, then already this argument is a little bit flawed. I mean, he has great size and he has great athleticism. Maybe he's injured from time to time, but that is something that shouldn't really affect how he's playing. I mean, Marvin Bagley coming out of college was a great player. And I still do believe if given the right situation, Marvin Bagley can develop and blossom in any kind of role. A lottery pick, I have yet to see the top guys, so we're going to discuss that. Kendrick Nunn, I do believe Kendrick Nunn could have been a first-round pick in this redraft especially. Javon Carter, I don't want to sign up for that. Jayshawn Tate, I agree. Kevin Huerter, I mean, it doesn't really matter. He's just one pick. So, yeah, not too bad. I don't know how Jalen Brunson is above Kevin Huerter. Well, he's above Kevin Huerter. DeAnthony Melton. Alright, we're going to get into the picks 15 through 1. These are pretty important. So at number 15, Devontae Graham. I do believe that's not a bad spot for Devontae Graham, as he's been pretty good and he's been able to play pretty good, especially when he was on the Hornets. He struggled a little bit having to rotate between so many guards, but hey, they figured it out and he got paid, so good for him. Wendell Carter Jr. I can't be too mad at it. Yes, Wendell is on my team now, but Wendell has been, even though I have to admit it, Wendell has been a little bit of a disappointment on the Bulls. He wasn't as good as what we thought he could be defensively and offensively. His offense needs to develop better. I will say Mo Bamba has a better offensive game than Wendell Carter Jr., but Wendell Carter Jr. still has the potential to be a great player. And like all these players still have so much time in the world to develop and become such great players. 3 years does not define your career. Any of these players could easily blossom into a superstar in the next 2 or 3 seasons. You can't expect these players to excel like others have. Some players take time, and that's okay. It's all good. Miles Bridges at 13th doesn't really make too much of a difference. I mean, he still would have been a Clippers pick, so it doesn't really matter. Duncan Robinson. I do really like that one. That one's a pretty good one. Duncan Robinson, while being undrafted, he did deserve to be drafted. But, I mean, Duncan Robinson has proven that if a redraft happened, he does deserve to go in that lottery. Dante DiVincenzo. I really wish we could have seen him play for the Bucks there in the playoffs. Unfortunately, he got injured. But he was one of those players that made his draft stock rise through the NCAA tournament. And that was such a great positive thing for him. All right, top 10. All right. Number 9, Mitchell Robinson. You see, the thing with Mitchell Robinson is, he's great. He's a great player, especially on defense. But his offense damages your team so much. We literally saw it in the playoffs where Mitchell Robinson couldn't help his team too much because he couldn't space the floor as well to help Julius Randle get more shots up. While yes, Mitchell Robinson, he's a great center, especially with how majority of the top centers of this draft have developed. A lot of them aren't really too much of outside threats from 3. A lot of the centers from this draft have seemed to turn into paint presence and defensive anchors. That's typically what we see, and then a little bit of 3-point shooting, not too much, just a slight little bit. So this draft class has proven to have a lot of the same typical centers, and they'll anchor the paint, swat shots, and get some buckets down low. They're not really too good offensively outside of the paint, except for Mo Bamba, obviously. At number 8, Robert Williams III. This is one of those picks that I think is really because of situation that he was able to develop and flourish. Robert Williams was projected to not really be anything special in the NBA. And if I'm being honest with you, Robert Williams has presented some great games. And he's been able to showcase some of his skill sets and some of his different play styles while playing for the Celtics. I really like his fit on the Celtics. I think they've done great with Robert Williams III. But the reason why he's up so high is because he's had what Mo Bamba couldn't have. See what I did there? But he's had what some of the centers of this draft class haven't been able to have, and that's opportunity. And while having that opportunity, he was able to flourish. Robert Williams was able to make mistakes, and he was able to play through them, which helped with his development mightily. And we're seeing it right now. Robert Williams is likely going to be the Celtics starting center of the future. He's just that good. He can shoot and he can play. He's a great offensive player. He can shoot mid-ranges, he can shoot in the paint, and he can get you a 3-pointer from time to time, but he's not really too reliable from that. But it doesn't hurt you that he can shoot the 3 every now and then. I really like this pick. I do believe if a redraft happened, Robert Williams could be a top 15 pick simply because of his opportunity and the chance that he has had. And that's not to discredit him. He has taken advantage of the opportunity and the chance he got. And that's why I really like this pick. Chicago Bulls, Jaren Jackson Jr. I feel Jaren Jackson Jr. is this low because of his injuries. If it wasn't for the amount of times he's been injured, he would obviously still be a top 4 pick. Jaren Jackson Jr. is such a versatile player. He does have his slumps every now and then, but he was only able to play 11 games this season, as it says right here. I mean, he managed 11 games. For his career, he's averaged 2 threes and 2 blocks. Already, that's a unicorn player that you want to have on your team. He's so long and he's so tall, and he's able to he knows how to play defense. He knows where to be. That doesn't sound like something that's a big deal, but I mean, if you look at some centers of this draft, they're not really too sharp on defense because they don't know where to stand and they don't know when to jump for that block. Now, his rebounding and passing can get some work, but it's nothing it's nothing out of the ordinary to see in big men like this. I do really like how he plays. I think he can be great next to John Morant. He's going to be great next to him. I personally, due to his upside and due to everything that he can do for your team right now, if healthy, I do believe he should go at least top 5. My opinion. Now, the Orlando Magic, Mikal Bridges. This is one of those picks where I feel as if it is recency bias. The Suns just went to the finals, and Mikal Bridges was a huge part of it, and Mikal Bridges balled out in the playoffs. He really did. He killed it in the playoffs. But I do think it's a little bit of recency bias because he's only averaged 13 points and 4 rebounds and 2 assists, and he almost hit 2 threes a game. His defensive numbers are amazing. 1.1 steals and 0.9 blocks for a point guard is great statistics. That is a defensive point guard who can and knows where to be on defense. So he has the advantage in that category. But there's so many players in this draft class that their plus minus has been high. So if we're going based off of team plus minus when he's on or off the floor per 100 possessions, you have to be super careful with that statistic because that statistic can literally destroy or reimburse your argument. You have to be really careful because that argument has a really thin line. So Mikal Bridges, I don't agree with him going 6. While I do believe he is such a great long point guard and he can play any position, 1, 2, 3. But you have to be really careful with this one because while yes, he's a pretty good player, he's only going to become a role player. And maybe that's because of the type of players he has around him, but he's a great fit, he's a great piece. But I don't see him going anywhere inside of the top 8 simply because of he's one of those type of players that there'll always be more of them. For example, we had Moses Moody, same prototype of player. So there's so many different players with his same skill set. Number 5, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I 100% agree with that. Shai in OKC is a fit I love, and I really do want this duo to stay for a really long time. I know Oklahoma City hasn't been in the best situation. They haven't been playing the greatest, but I do believe Shai Gilgeous is one of their main future pieces, and this team needs to build around him. He is the future, and he has so much promise, especially now that we're 3 years into his career. He has only shown promise. He's shown great things in all 3 of his years, and he can be a really, really great piece on this Oklahoma City team. He can be the future of this team, and he will be the future of this team. I heavily believe in Shai Gilgeous simply because of his length, his athleticism, and even his play. It all complements so nicely. DeAndre Ayton taken at number 4. I mean, you can't agree with it. DeAndre Ayton is sort of in the same category as the other centers we've seen in this NBA draft. He's a player that can play around the paint, defensive anchor, get you some mid-range shots every now and then, but he's mostly your defensive anchor, and he's there to stop offenses from scoring in the paint, where you can just let your man go by and you know DeAndre Ayton's holding down the paint. We see this a lot in different centers of this draft, like Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Bamba, and Robert Williams. They all are sort of the same prototype of center. DeAndre Ayton just has a bigger body, and he's more skilled than those guys, and his offense is so much more polished. Not talking 3-point, I'm talking in the paint and around the basket. He has the best offensive game out of those guys, but you can see that they all have like a sort of similar play style, if you will. Now, obviously, him being taken number 1 when he wasn't a reach. He was one of the bigger guys coming into the draft, and whenever you see a center that big with such a built body at such a young age, it can only be promised. We've seen it in so many different players. DeAndre Ayton, he's already proven to be a great player. Even before the Suns made the playoffs, he was always playing great. So I do not think this is a reach. At number 3, the Hawks take Michael Porter Jr. I completely agree with this. Michael Porter Jr. landed on the Nuggets because the Nuggets were extremely, extremely lucky. If it wasn't for his back injuries, I personally believe Michael Porter Jr. would have been the number 1 overall pick in this draft. He was such a great player coming out of high school. He barely played in college, but in high school, he was such a great player. And he's so tall. He's able to get a shot off on any spot of the court. He's such a great player. And if it wasn't for his back injuries and his nagging little injuries that happen every now and then, he would be a great player on any team, and he would have been a number 1 overall pick. I truly do believe that. He probably would have been playing for the Phoenix Suns right now with Devin Booker if he was healthy when he came into the draft. So Michael Porter Jr., I love this pick. He is the future of the Denver Nuggets. I love him. Number 2, Trae Young. While a lot of people pretty much hate Trae Young, I love him. I don't love his foul baiting, but I love his play style. I love his confidence. how he can be such a little guy and he's still able to dominate the NBA court. Trae Young isn't some dude that just came out of nowhere and started playing good this year. No, Trae Young has been playing super productive for the last 2 years of his NBA career. He was productive on the Hawks. It's just the Hawks didn't really have too good of a team, and they were really young, so they weren't really expected to go anywhere. This year, he finally made the playoffs, and this year he took his team to the conference finals. He beat the Philadelphia 76ers to even make the conference finals, which was already a super impressive feat. And I do believe Trae Young is advancing the game of basketball. He's changing things. He's changing rules. He's doing such great things on this court, and he can only get better. I do believe in the future we might have Luka versus Trae Young MVP discussions. It's not out of the realm of possibility. He is such a great player, and I love the way he plays. I love his game. I believe he has great things in store. And last, Luka Doncic, obviously your number 1 overall pick. He's a future MVP. I don't really have to get too much into this. We all love Luka. We all know he's going to be a great player. Now, when it comes to your first 2 picks, Luka and Trae Young, those are certified locks. I believe those are locks. I don't think you can really argue those 2 picks. It's Luka, then Trae. Maybe those 2 can argue. Maybe you can argue that either one of them could have been the number 1 overall pick. They're both great players that have led their teams to the playoffs. Now, when it comes to picks 3, 4, and 5, you could argue any of those players could be in any different position, because those 3 players are such great players and they have such promising futures ahead of them in the NBA. I could see all 3 of them becoming all-stars in the future, and I really do believe they will be great players in the NBA, and they are the future of their teams. Now, if one of your favorite players didn't really get picked, or they said that their position dropped because they've been a disappointment, don't worry. All of these players just wrapped up their 3rd season in the NBA. It's okay if your favorite player hasn't really been too good coming into their 3rd season. Remember, a lot of these players had only 1 true season, and they went through a COVID season, and now they just went through a silent NBA season, is what I like to call it, because there were no fans in the stands. So it's been really rough for a lot of these rookies. Some of them have had pretty bad situations, and some of them have had amazing situations. It all just depends on how you view it and what you think their potential could be. All of these players still have potential to become great players in the NBA. Every single one of them, pick 1 through 60, they can all be great players. It all just depends on how well they're able to perform and improve their craft. So that is all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate all the love and support you guys give me. Thank you so much for watching again. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell next to my name to stay notified, and peace out.